Hello. What?
You changed things up. No yay.
Yay! Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 416. On tonight's show, the one and only Maria Dalzot will be joining us to chat about her recent European adventures. She got up to some fun stuff in Europe from UTMB CCC. It was her first 100K race. She also ran the Dents du Midi. I'm going to butcher that.
That might be the best
Midi
pronunciation the name of that race is going to hear this whole show.
Thank you. But a lot of stuff happened that she kind of had to overcome, from lost luggage to a car breaking down to weather changing a race entirely. There's so many things that basically a bunch of screwdrivers got tossed into the machine, and she had to go with the flow and like figure things out. And traveling and racing in Europe is already a big deal. So we have a lot to catch up with Maria. She's also an amazing registered dietitian. We've had her on the show a number of times. So she's an expert in so many different things when it comes to ultra and trail running. It's going to be a fantastic show. Sit back, relax, everyone. Ginger Runner Live 416 begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 416. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Tuesdays to spend a little bit of it with us. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
How
I
are
was
you?
so worried you're going to leave me hanging on the yay that I pulled back a little bit.
Sorry, our cold open today was I did something different.
Cold.
Yeah, after 416 episodes, you think I'd remember exactly how we do this, but yeah, I think I did something new. We have a very exciting show tonight because we get to welcome back to the show Maria Dalzot. She's been a regular on Ginger Runner Live. She's sort of our resident registered dietitian, food expert, and a counselor. She does so many good things for so many people when it comes to food, whether it's disordered eating or eating disorders. She works with a number of clients, but in addition to that, she's an incredible adventurer and ultra runner herself. She just got back from Europe, a huge sort of European tour running the UTMB CCC and the Dents du Midi. Dents du Midi. She's going to pronounce it. It's going to be like perfect and beautiful, and I'm just going to butcher it the entire show. But she ran 2 different races, in addition to having to overcome a number of setbacks, from lost luggage to a car breaking down to weather changing a race at the last minute. And we're talking like snow and weather on a very, very technical, dangerous course. So all these things sort of came together on her European vacation. But we're going to chat with Maria Dalzot tonight. We're very excited to welcome her to the show. We'll introduce her in just one second. But of course, before we do, we are live for the GR crew. New in the last few weeks, we've been doing our Ginger Runner Live episodes live for the GR crew. If you would like to join our live shows, just head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers of support get access to Ginger Runner Live, but we post these shows for everyone to enjoy, so you don't have to be a GR crew member to enjoy them. 24 hours later, we'll post them to the YouTube channel so all can enjoy. But we are live with the GR crew, and Kim, you're in the chat room.
Hi. Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. Kim Shima Newberry here, as always. If you're new or new to the crew, come say hi in the chat. And of course, we'll be bringing Maria on in just a second. So if you have questions for Maria, please ask them in the chat.
In the chat. We have some from Discord. We'll definitely have some in the chat tonight. So this is a great opportunity to chat with Maria. Again, so many different things that we're going to be covering in tonight's episode. Before we do have some individuals that we like to thank at the top of every episode. That is, of course, the GR crew. It is because of them that we're able to do these live shows, in addition to our reviews, our films, pretty much any project that we do on this channel. It is because of them. That also goes with our in-person races. From Tiger Claw to GRGR, which is taking place next week. If you haven't registered, please go to rungrgr.com to check out more information about our sort of virtual 7-day challenge event. We've been doing it now for 7 years. It's kind of a tradition. We're very, very fortunate and also excited about it. But one individual in particular at the top tier Patreon, we'd like to thank him at the beginning of every episode as well. Brian Sands. Thank you so much, Brian, for being such an amazing member of our community. We appreciate you very much. And he supports so many different ultra running channels and content creators and athletes in this world and in this sport. We're thankful for him because he's just been so supportive of so many people, individuals, organizations, and all the good things. So thank you, Brian. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you, GR crew. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest back to the show. It's been a while. We're so excited when she does get a chance to join us all the way. Well, she's no longer in Europe, but back from Europe, Maria Dalzot.
Hi.
How are you, Maria?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
How does it feel being back? Because how long were you in Europe, and where
We
in Europe?
we were there for 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We were staying in a small mountain town in Switzerland called Les Crozets. Um, it's about an hour and a half from Geneva. There's no other landmarks that I can tell you about. It's literally, you get on one road and it's at the dead end of the road on top of a mountain. And so being home feels like a culture shock. It was literally Tad and myself, and for half the time our friends were staying with us, and then just cows, and that was it. Like
Wow.
there was nobody around. And so to answer your question, being back home, it feels busy. It feels a little overwhelming. And, I continued to work while I was over there, but the timing was such that during the day, things were really quiet because people were sleeping at home.
Yeah.
And so it's been an adjustment having, the constant emails and whatnot, just the constant communication. So that's been a bit of just an adjustment. And I'm happy to be home, but I've been in sort of a funk because admittedly, I really like it over there.
Yeah.
I enjoy the slower, quieter pace of it. And it just generally feels safer being on the trails over there. There's no predators that are out to get you, and the trails are really marked very well. And so there's just like a very soothing, safe feeling being there. And so coming home, I'm a little like, and like just kind of like, just I've been just calling it just being in a little funk, and I know it'll pass. It always does. This typically happens this time of year after, focusing so long and putting so much time and energy into preparing for these races, and then to come back and just have this downtime. I'm just embracing it right now.
Yeah, I think that's a super common thing amongst runners, ultra runners, when you put so much into a race or the lead up to a race, and you have your race, whether or not you're traveling, that race happens. And then the after period is a little like blue-ish.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
You talked, we got to see Maria at Kim's hamster race.
And that was like the day before,
you were leaving.
You guys were leaving.
I couldn't have asked for a better send-off. Can I just say?
You're welcome.
Thank you. Like, seriously, I honestly, in Kim, and I'm not just saying this because I was, I watched your recap of the race episode, and just, yes, I was there, but to really be able to hear what you experienced for your first 100K, taking that with me to run my first 100K, it was something that I thought about a lot. So I'm really appreciative for that.
And Kim and I, during your recap episode, we talked about your feelings post-race, because that was a big buildup for you. And Maria, I imagine, God, it's like tenfold, because one, you're running your first 100K distance, so there's probably a lot of buildup to that.
It's on such a big stage, like a world stage.
UTMB is such a spectacle. Plus, just Europe taking, I'm not going to call it a vacation as much as it is more of an adventure trip, because you're simultaneously working. It's not like you're unplugging completely for 5 weeks, but it is a different lifestyle. It's a different pace of life. You have races and big events that you're training for. So there probably is this big anticipation of those 5 weeks, the realization that these are sort of adventurous weeks, and you kind of live in a different country, and you get to kind of get used to the different lifestyle. So now that you're back to where you were before, it probably feels a little foreign. It sort of feels like having to kind of plug back in, and that grind. And
that's right.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jean Ives in the chat room says reverse culture shock is always worse.
It's always worse. Yeah. Yep. So I do want to kind of talk about, let's set the stage, because you not only raced a couple of big races in Europe, and that was sort of all the prep and training, specifically the 100K. I can't wait to start talking about that, because that's a big distance. But let's kind of get through some of the hurdles that you had to overcome even before your very first race. And I think this is a conversation that anyone who plans on traveling to Europe and racing, or has the dream of going to Europe to run any sort of trail race or something like that, you might encounter some of what Maria and her partner encountered. So how did this trip begin?
Well, We did not get a direct flight to Geneva. We had a layover in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Ooh.
And the layover was 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Super
And
quick.
yes. And it's a small airport. So we're like, it's going to be fine. And so we were fine. Everything was on time. There was no problem with the actual travel. But when we got to Geneva, oh no, let me back up. I forgot about this. When we went to check in our big bags, so we had our big bag and then we had a carry-on and then we had backpacks. What's frustrating about traveling to Europe, especially, and this has always been our experience, so if someone else might have a different experience, they're very, very strict on luggage sizes and like how big your carry-on is.
Sure.
Our backpacks were considered too big, and so they called that our carry-on. So they took my carry-on that had all my race vests, all my running clothes, my shoes, my gels and stuff were already packed in the check-in because I didn't want them to take that away. But I had nothing. They took everything. And not only that, I thought I was going to have that bag with me. So I didn't even have a name tag on it.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm like, I know. My anxiety was just I was just extremely dysregulated and upset. And, and Tad just very much like, just do it. This is just what's happening. We're just going to do this and like hope for the best.
Yeah.
So we get to Geneva and our carry-on, what was supposed to be our carry-on, they show up. So I have like my light and my shoes, but our big bags were missing. We waited and waited and they never showed up. So I didn't have any of my nutrition fuel. I didn't have any other clothes other than I was wearing my Tiger Claw shirt.
Yes.
and like coral pants for like 4 days. But it was really upsetting. I mean, you're so tired and you haven't slept a whole night, and then to have to stand in line and deal with it, it was really upsetting. But the thing about it is they didn't know where our bags were. And so we got they took our information and then we drove to the house where we were staying, and we just kept checking in and checking in and checking in. So at this point, I told all the people that we had no luggage, and just the kindness of my friends and like clients wanting to send me, like, tell me what you want me to overnight. Like, I'll go and I'll send you whatever you need. We started thinking about like what happens if I don't have like my stuff, the 100K, you need required gear. And I was missing some of the required gear that would allow me to run the race. Oh. And so I started to think, I can talk to people who are running OCC, which was happening the day before, and ask them for stuff. So we were starting to problem solve. But the thing about it is it wasn't like a relaxing time. It wasn't like I wasn't able to go and settle and like kick my feet up and like get ready to race. It was just very, very stressful. But I kept calling and calling and calling. And finally, one person was able to talk to me, and they said that they found our luggage. And so like 3 days later, we drive back to the airport and our luggage is there, and it was like Christmas. And the funny thing is we went to go get our luggage, and like, again, wearing my Tiger Claw t-shirt, coral pants, we're like just all sweaty and stressed out. And we're waiting to get into the door to get our luggage. And there's a local cameraman there. He's like, can we record your experience getting your luggage? They're like, what happened? And Tad's very much like he's just very serious. And I'm just like, they lost it and they didn't have it. And I had the race and I was like going on. And so then they open the door and we get our luggage and we come out and the camera guy is like waiting at the other end. And I'm like, it's like Christmas. Like, we got our stuff. And I'm like, now I can run my race. And it was just like so silly, but I was very excited. And
we saw these clips on TMZ, right?
Yeah.
It was just like hysterical American woman.
Yes. But so that was good. And that was something that it sucked, it
Yeah.
sucked to have to
How
be
many
put through
days
all of
after
that.
you got there?
We got 3 days. We went without
3
it for
days.
3 days. So it wasn't terrible, but it was just not knowing when it was going to arrive.
Yeah.
And then the day after we drove to the airport, the car broke down and they weren't able to like deliver us a new car because we were like up on this top, like can't stress enough like how remote this where we were. So Tad had to go back to the airport for like the third time in like a week. And he was just so just like stressed out, and it was just not fun. We were not having fun.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then once we finally got the car back, we had a couple days before the race where things were just quiet and like we could settle.
I am stressed even just hearing this stuff, knowing you're preparing for your longest distance to date on a stage like UTMB. So talking about CCC specifically, 100K. I hope it's not too forward, but as an anxiety sufferer, and you've been open with your dealing with it, how do you manage these hiccups when they happen? Because I like things in order, and if when things change at the last minute, it's sort of like I need to readjust, right? And so when you start taking all these random things happening, like luggage getting lost and the car breaking down and having to go back to the airport, how were you able to sort of take it in stride and like continue to stay focused and not let things spiral?
Yeah. I think it helps having a partner who wasn't in hysterics about everything. One of the therapists I who is a mentor of mine, he said, if you want the best relationship advice, it's don't go crazy at the same time. So just having just like the presence of we're going to figure this out was reassuring. And I had mentioned that I've been reflecting on my relationship with anxiety over the past years, and I've been working with a deep dive into trauma-informed care for like 3 years now. Some might even call it an obsession, but what it has allowed me to really have a very deep understanding about is our body's ability to keep ourselves safe, or in its attempt to keep ourselves safe, whether it is a real or perceived threat. And so I've also noticed, and I think back on the first time I was on this show and we had talked about anxiety, and how I present myself with it was always in such a way that is like, hi, I'm Maria and I have anxiety. And it was just very much like as what I identified with. And as I'm learning about what really is underneath it, I'm like, that's not my identity. That's not a personality trait. I don't have anxiety. It's not this thing that is a part of me. It is sometimes I feel anxiety in my body. It is not this identity thing that I have, because what I noticed by saying, hi, I'm Maria, I have anxiety, I would hear things like, oh, you want to go do this race? And I would immediately go, oh, I can't do that. There's a bridge right in the middle of that. I have anxiety. And so I would cut myself off before even given the chance to explore what was possible, because I was so fused to this identity, this character trait of anxiety. And so over the years, I'm by no means perfect with it. It's a constant practice of creating space of, oh, I'm feeling anxiety in my body. And that is because I am perceiving a threat right now. And that's what anxiety is. It's a perception of threat. Something in my environment, I am sensing something that is scaring me. And so to try to loop it back to your question of how do I sit in that, being able to notice, like, where is anxiety showing up? And typically it shows up as involuntary muscle constriction. So if everyone here listening is thinking about how many times a day do you experience involuntary muscle contraction? How many times a day? I'm like a bajillion. How many times did you say? Right? Like right now, my legs are like clenched shut because I'm like, my perceived threat is, oh, if I say something stupid, I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be kicked off the show. People are going to think I'm stupid. I'm never going to get any clients, blah, 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 blah. So in order to stay relaxed and present with you, I have to constantly unclench my legs and unclench my fists. And this is something that I practice leading up to both races of, oh, I'm perceiving a threat right now. Nothing is wrong in this moment. I am completely safe. I am completely fine. Nothing is happening to me. My body does not need to be in this dysregulated place where it is spending so much energy. And I'll stop in a second because I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I want to make this point. The more energy that we use, first of all, we need energy to do stuff. If we don't have energy, we're sleeping. And when we're sleeping, we can't run. So you need a certain amount of energy. But there's like a point where it becomes detrimental to us. Our energy starts building up and building up and building up, as what happens with anxiety. And as energy builds up in our body, our cognitive functioning goes down. Our ability to think and to problem solve and to be able to respond and not react, it goes down as the energy in our body goes up. So I don't want that to be happening when I have to problem solve, when I have to think critically,
Right.
when I have to think on my feet. And so the entire time I kept thinking, there's no threat here. I am fine in this moment. I can relax the muscles in my body because I want that energy to be able to think clearly, to be able to get creative, and to be able to get through these challenges that are happening right now. And I didn't know at the time of what was going to happen for the second race as well.
This is so relevant to me right now because
I think first off, like we love these tangents. Like, so don't ever feel the need to stop talking, because this is one, I mean, both of us fairly well. And I think that like anxiety runs very deep in this house in conversations that we have. So everything that you're saying is really relevant. And I think with a lot of people in the crew here as well, I mean, there's a lot of nods going on with things that you're saying right now. Angela is saying, yes, that's how it manifests for me. So much clenching. Nicole is saying, so on point. And Lisa says, my jaw gets it from me. And I'm like that. I just told you, I think it was this morning, I was like, oh, I must have been clenching my jaw while I was sleeping or while I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is super relevant, Maria, because I've been on this new journey with anxiety that I haven't really experienced. I've had anxiety, or I've experienced anxious thoughts for a majority of my life, as long as I can remember. And I'm in this new version of it in the last maybe 4 or 5 months or so. And my relationship with it has changed. And I'm learning a lot more. And what you were just saying really resonates with me, where I'm talking about it different, and I'm looking at it differently from a different lens. And it's a lot of work because I'm having to unlearn things that I defaulted to as like safety mechanisms for my entire life. Like I built up this, and we are going into an anxiety tangent, and that is okay. Yeah. We're going to get to UTMB CCC here in just a second.
Okay. Yeah.
But like the things that I would teach myself to cope or to manage stopped working. And so I've had to like learn new things and realize, oh, I was teaching myself ways to manage and to deal with anxiety that maybe weren't healthy and contributed to it getting worse. So it's like, now I'm looking at it differently. And what you just said is brilliant. And I think people who maybe are anxiety sufferers or have dealt with it in the past, and I'm not just talking like pre-race nerves or jitters and that kind of thing, but like real heartfelt anxiety, like those words that Maria just said are really powerful. And I hope that we can sort of take some of that, because there's a lot of lessons in what Maria just said. And I love hearing you talk like that, Maria, because I know that you've had your battles and your journey with this for so long, that hearing you create a new relationship with it and being able to separate yourself from it, that's huge growth. And like, I hope to be there. Like, I'm listening. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to be in that place right now. It's not there, but I will get there someday, you know?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And I'm talking from a place of, I'm not on the top of my mountain looking down at everybody saying, oh, come up where I am.
Right.
I'm still like climbing this mountain, but I'm looking at, maybe I can see you over climbing on your mountain, and I can say, oh, hey, maybe if you go around this way, you can get up there a little easier. And I'm going to try this step. And so doing this work, and these are all, if you're a client of mine, this all sounds very familiar, because we talk about being in this. And so I've been doing the work alongside them, and it's just been really profound in my own personal experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Maria. Yeah. And now looking at UTMB CCC, so we chatted at Hamster before you took off for this big, wonderful adventure. And I didn't realize that this was going to be your longest distance. In my head, I was like, yeah, Maria, she's like run 100 milers. Like, I just knew you as this total amazing adventurer and ultra athlete. So how did you sort of approach, well, one, what made you sign up for the 100K, the CCC? It's a huge stage and it's a big distance and big race.
I've been fortunate to have the privilege to run the OCC for 2 years. I did in 2019 and 2021, and that's the 50K. And I think I got what I wanted out of that. And the thought of doing something new, I felt ready for. I have done 250 milers. And so it seemed my progression, I've been running since I was 11. So my progression has been like incredibly slow as far as distance goes, which I'm totally fine with. And I just felt ready for it. I've got that a lot, like, oh my gosh, you picked the UTMB CCC 100K as your first one. And honestly, and it goes back to what I was saying about feeling safer in Europe than in the States, and that for multiple reasons. And again, going back to, I always bring everything back to the foundation of safety. If I feel safe, I don't feel threat. And if I'm not in threat, I'm not in a stress response. And if I'm not in a stress response, I have energy and I can potentially perform better. So I'm very familiar with the trails over there. I've been to Europe many, many times. And so it feels familiar over there. Number one. Number two, there's so many people, which some people don't like, but should anything go wrong, there's always somebody there. Not only was this my first 100K, but it was also the most vert I've done in one chunk. And also I'd be running in the dark for many hours. I've never done that before. Yeah. I'm not a dark nighttime or early morning time runner. So that was a big deal. So I had feelings of nervousness and anxiety around running in the dark, but it was comforting knowing if I'm by myself, I have to wait like 30 seconds and someone's going to be there that I can run with. And so, so it felt very safe going into this as being my first 100K. There were a lot of unknowns given the three new things: the distance, the vert, and the nighttime running. But my training was such that I went into it knowing I did everything that I could to be prepared for it, which you can't always say that. And so I was grateful going into it.
Yeah. Do you think being able to train here in the Pacific Northwest and in the region that you are able to train in, do you think that contributed to a successful run? Like, did it translate, I guess, is the question.
And I know you've asked that to other people as well. And I want to say yes. However, we are at a disadvantage because we're at sea level versus being at altitude. And so we were staying at 6,000 feet, and I just had to laugh because Tad's like, man, I'll be so glad when I can stand up and not be lightheaded. Like every time we stand up, we have to like brace ourselves a second. So I don't know how big of a, I was there for a while. I don't know if that affected, but like training wise, you can definitely tell the difference. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I will say that. I will not move anywhere else because I just love where I live. And for the most part, we have access to everything. Terrain wise, we don't have the long climbs with the long descents,
Sure.
but we have access to everything else and so many different locations. And I was able to get up to Baker. Was it Baker? I went to Cascade Crest. That was one of my big runs. I went to Cascade Crest and did a long run in the dark to practice. And so there were many opportunities to mimic the terrain and the course. And I never felt like where I lived hindered me. The only thing I can think of is the elevation.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a pretty common response. I mean, when we talked to Caitlin about it, Caitlin agrees. She loves this region. It's like it does prepare you for these international stages because we have so much at our disposal in our backyard.
We do.
Elevation is the one thing you have to work to get to that high altitudes. But you can get it. But it just sometimes takes a lot of work. I do want to chat a bit about the experience itself and running 100K. Was there ever a moment? Well, let's talk about the hardships during the race. Like, what did you encounter during the race that maybe was like, oh man, I did not expect this? Or did you have any of those lows that you would have? And how did it feel to cross that milestone beyond the furthest distance you've ever run before?
Yeah. My answer to this might not be very, very exciting because it surprised myself, but I had one moment, and it was the very first climb, and this is the only part of the course I had not seen, and it was like just a mind-blowing long climb. And I remember looking up, and I'm like, holy shit, like that's where we're going. And then I looked down to where we just came, and it felt so overwhelming. And that, I felt the anxiety, and like I just felt it coming on, and then to be able to again, relax myself and I also, that moment sticks out because I did also think about a particular client and like something that they had gone through. And I'm like, that is suffering. That is suffering. Like, you are safe right now. You are climbing this freaking mountain. Like you can feel this and still be okay. Like nothing's going to happen to you. And so I was able to work through that. But then I got to the top, and it immediately just was this technical downhill, and my sunglasses flew off. And if you watched my Tad's takeover, you saw you got a glimpse of that. But my sunglasses, they're brand new, and I was like, oh, what do I do? Like it was like Mufasa, like in The Lion King, like you could not turn around. And so I made the decision, just like I didn't know what to do. And then I'm like, just maybe I can come back and get them later, because they went down the mountain. Like they weren't just like right there. So I was like really bummed about that. And I'm just like, and it just was just a really overwhelming moment. And then if you saw the video, like I got to the aid station, I told Tad, I'm like, I lost my sunglasses. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, but they're gone forever. Something like that. He's like, okay. Like, and just no reaction. And then honestly, that was at mile 8. From mile 8 to mile 62, I was like, totally in my groove, absolutely fine, calm, like cool as a cucumber. I had such a fun time. I loved going to the aid stations, and I was like, oh, Snickers, crackers, like never eaten this before. This sounds great. And I spent the rest of the time eating Snickers and crackers, and it was just so fun and great. And I honestly had never had another low, never had a moment of this sucks, I want to be done. I truly loved every minute of it. And I don't know if I've ever said that about any race. I will say that my goal for the race, we played it conservative because I've never done this before.
Yeah.
15 hours was my goal. I was 15 hours and 16 minutes. My running time was 15 hours, and I spent 16 minutes in 8 aid stations. Total.
Wow.
I know. So I'm pretty proud of that. So
what
for
about
my
that
first
extra second, with that 1 second to go sub 15?
Yeah.
It's the sunglasses. Blame the sunglasses.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And in the middle of the race, there was a torrential downpour that poured. Just the trails turned into just rivers, like just soaked. So I had to stop and put my jacket on. I changed my shoes and socks. And just because I was getting blisters and I was already feeling it. And so I just, just was really, I thought ran just a very smart, very thoughtful race. One thing I want to share, I was on the starting line and I was just very calm because I'm keeping my body relaxed. And I was just kind of taking things in. And someone beside me was just kind of like, how people are on the starting line, they're nervous. And she goes, I wonder what's happening in our bodies right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could so tell you what's happening. I didn't go into it. I'm just like, yeah, I know. So that was kind of funny.
You're like, actually, the synaptic gaps between our brain cells.
Like her breakfast in her stomach.
I mean, Maria, that's amazing. So longest you've ever run, being able to do 62 miles and being able to like embrace every moment of it and enjoy every moment of it. That is what we dream of in pursuing these big, difficult things, is to have a day that is not easy, but like effortless, I guess, in a way. Not the endurance side of it, but just like mentally, right?
Yes. And I'm more surprised than anybody. Like you prepare for, okay, this is like at some point you're gonna like just want to be left on the trail alone to wither away, and and that's it, right? But it never happened. And I really enjoyed the aspect of, and I'm not saying I would race like this every time, but I did enjoy. They gave you your names on your bibs in your country, and so people knew who could speak English and not. And so for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, it's because I could speak English. I was like talking to all these like Scottish guys. Like I was around all these Scottish guys, and so I was like hearing them talk, and some from the UK, and they were like my people, and like we were talking, and I just really enjoyed that. So it just was fun. Like I don't think I've ever had so much fun in a race, because it's been either like so intense you don't have time to do that, or you're just feeling like shit and you can't enjoy it fully. So it was such a special time, and I'm definitely savoring it and letting that land fully.
That's amazing.
Did anyone recognize you from the lost luggage on the news story?
Aren't you that hysterical American at the airport?
Maybe if I had my Tiger Claw shirt on and coral pants.
Yeah, coral pants. Can you sign my bib? You're famous. And also the fact that you spent 16 minutes in aid station, like just 16 minutes is... I mean, that's amazing.
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
15 hours moving time. That's bonkers, Maria. Incredible run. Before we start talking about don't please pronounce it for me. So I'm
not going to do it like that. I just say the Dents du Midi.
Dents du Midi. I can do that. Rather than trying to be like perfect.
I have a question about Dents du Midi, though.
Oh, no. I was going to let you take away some live questions, or take it away.
Take it away.
Or if you want to transition into...
let's transition to the...
Do you want to do the question first, or you talk about it?
I can ask the question, because I think this kind of leads into the lead up of Dents du Midi. This question is from our Discord server, and it comes from Michael. And Michael asked, what type of mental calculus went through your head when Dents du Midi got cut down in distance due to snow? Did the distance cut make it more fun due to the reduced length, or more stressful because it was outside of your plan? So maybe brief people
what happened.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for that question. And the very quick answer is neither of those things happened. But I'll get back to that. So my second race was 3 weeks later, and I ran this race last year, and it's a 57K. It comes out to like 38 miles. And this race holds a special place in my heart, because this is the mountain range that I literally would wake up to every morning there. Like I would see it in my window every single day. I trained on it. I know it. I love the soul of the race. It's like very like, it goes back to like a complete opposite of UTMB. It's like people sitting around drinking beer and like music and everything after, like just what you think of as the original type mountain race. And so it holds and I have a pair of underwear with the mountain range on it. That's how intimate that I am with this race. So it means a lot to me. And last year I ran it and I was second, and I lost by 4 minutes. And most of that was because there were 2 start times, and I started at the later time because a 6 a.m. start would be dark running. And I don't do that because I have anxiety, right? So because I started later, I caught up to the people that were in the back of that pack. And there are a lot of sections with chains where you have to hold on, and it's nothing to mess around with. Like, it's treacherous, very technical. You have to be careful. And so I got stuck behind a lot of people. And so I was very confident, I can say, going into this race that I was in it to win it. Like, I wanted to go. And so we decided to do the 6 a.m. start so that wouldn't happen again. So I woke up at like 2:45 in the morning, and I look outside and it's snowing. Like, we're at 6,000 feet and the car is completely covered. And I'm like, oh shit, like, this race goes up to 8,400 feet. Like, there's no way this is going to be safe. Like, there's no way. Yeah. And so, we just went down, and the race started at 3,000 feet in a town called Champery. And I warmed up for a 6 a.m. start, pouring rain. And so I warmed up for 10 minutes and I'm soaking wet. And we noticed that there were people crowded around, and again, small mountain town, no one speaks English. I didn't know what was going on. Everyone's crowded. And so there was an announcement, and I asked somebody, can you please tell me what's happening? And they said, the race is delayed 30 minutes. So we're like, okay, we'll get back in the car and try to get warm. At this point, I'm drenched. And so we turn the heat on. And at like 6:20, I get up and jog around again. And then they're crowded around again. And this time it's like a really long announcement. And I don't know what's happening. But the whole crowd is like, oh. And we're like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? And so we wait. And I said, can you tell me what's happening? And he said, man said, he's going to say it in English when he's done talking. And so I waited. And they said that on the backside of the mountain where all the chains are and the cliffs and the part that is very treacherous, it snowed 2.5 feet that night. And underneath the snow, I know. Again, if you go to my Instagram reels, it's saved in the highlight. There's a picture that someone took. It's not the best picture, but it gives you an idea. He said underneath the 2.5 feet, there was a layer of ice. And he said, it's just impossible. And you can't argue with that. Like, of course, like, no, like, yeah. No. And so they said that it was going to end at the major town that was about halfway. It was like 16 miles, 16, 17 miles, something like that. And then they were going to have a bus there to bring people back. So all of a sudden, my 7-hour race was going to be like a 3-hour race. And then they're like, and the race starts in 15 minutes. And so we're like, and so Ted and I look at each other and we're like, okay. So I go back to the car and like, screw the drop bags. Don't need any of that. I had like all this stuff. Don't need it. I just, what's that? Your pack. Yeah, I took the gear out of my pack. Like, I didn't need, like, I basically had everything on. I've never raced. It was so cold. I had on a t-shirt, a long sleeve, my Gore-Tex rain jacket, and a winter hat.
Like all the layers, basically.
Yes, and hand warmers and big gloves. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, it's like get into 2016 Maria mode, which I haven't been in a very long time. But to answer Michael's question, like, before doing ultras, that's all I did was sub-ultra distance. Right out of college, I went right into just marathon and under, mostly like 15 miles. And so it was such a different, it was fun to run all the climbs instead of hiking but it's not what I was trained for. I'm trained to be out there for I was trained for 10,000 more feet of climbing, being out there for hours and hours. And so I ran and I got through it. It was the most beautiful mountain I've ever seen in my life. It was like being in a snow globe. It was incredible. Wow. So the experience itself was amazing. I ended up winning the 6 a.m. start time.
Yeah.
But I couldn't like do anything with it because I didn't know about the 9 a.m. people. The 9 a.m. people started, the sun came out. It was
melted, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, it was still, I mean, they didn't like, they had to do the shortened course too. Like this 2.5 feet didn't melt, but 2 people ran faster than me. So I ended up third, still podiumed in this race, which again, super grateful, super cool. Got to experience all of that. And I was fine and content the day of. But as the days went on and as I came home, the grief of not having the race that I had in my heart, like I've been working through, not getting that experience. So, I went to Europe and rested after CCC. We just stayed on top of our mountain. It's not like we were exploring and being tourists. It was very just rest and work, and to make these sacrifices and to not have it come to pass. And you can't, this is part of the game, right? You can't control that, but there's grief there. And so I'm processing through that. And it's definitely been a contributor to why I feel so kind of ho-hum at home, because I didn't have this thing that meant a lot to me. So, Michael, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, I mean, I think you did. I think it's trying to get into the mindset that you used to have, I guess, shorter distances. So it's like put on the speed game, but at the same point, you have these 2-wave starts and the circumstances obviously
like all the last minute changes and just trying to mentally.
What surprises me too is like you're trying to learn what is going on from anyone that speaks English, just to kind of give you that information so you at least know like what's up. And then to also find out like, okay, we start in 15 minutes. And so you and Tad, I can imagine you're having the conversation of like just the logistics of, well, I got to make sure I get back to the car. I got to make sure I know where you're going to be. Everything's different. And you have very little time to sort of figure it out. So there's a lot of stuff that had to happen for you to even have a successful race there anyways, let alone a 3rd place finish, which is amazing.
Thank you.
So let's take a second. And Maria Dalzot,
Oh.
congratulations on an amazing 3rd place at
Thank you.
Dents du Midi.
Yes.
Thank you. But also an amazing performance at CCC. But also an amazing performance at CCC. Like you managed to string together 2 obviously very different, but very difficult races. And over the course of 5 weeks in Europe, I feel like you were able to learn a lot about you as a runner and what you're capable of. And the fact you just kind of mentioned the grief, not being able to experience what you imagined you would experience or trained for, is also a really unique learning experience and a runner experience that I think our viewers and listeners can also relate to, because that is also something that like you talk about it with Hamster. You anticipated, you had certain goals in your head and you surpassed so many amazing things, but there's still like, you were like, maybe I'll do 100 or whatever. Still kind of like having to overcome some of those things that are residual, because you have expectations and you have goals.
And I think that's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's totally fine to celebrate something that you did, but then also at the exact same time maybe feel grief or a little bit of disappointment. Hand in hand.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around grief. Like grief is when you lose a loved one or a pet or just something very somebody very close to you lose. But one of my favorite definitions of grief is a change that you didn't want to happen. And I think we can all identify with grief, especially there's so many things we don't want to happen in this realm, right? And then there's also I shouldn't feel bad about things because other people, this is just running and whatnot. But whatever you say to yourself, you're still going to feel what you're going to feel. And so why not give yourself the space to feel that grief, process it, and we can still care for the people who are also suffering too.
Talking about grief, that's another thing that I've been working pretty heavily on in my work, my personal work.
Yes.
And it's been hard because I didn't realize what grief was, because I haven't experienced it to what I thought. I was, I was like, I haven't experienced the death of someone very close to me in a long time. And someone told me the same thing, that grief does not
It's not just that.
It's not just death, and it's not just death of a loved one. It can be, your definition is so much simpler, and so much clearer, and I think it's very relatable. So I find myself really nodding and connecting with your stories here, Maria, because I feel like I'm going through a lot of the same stuff just personally. So this has been a joy to chat with you and to kind of connect since you've been back from Europe. Are you currently running? Are you taking a break now that you got your Europe trip and you're back in the US, or what's kind of going on with your running at this point?
Right now I'm just trying to get back into a normal routine again. I think because I didn't get to run this long thing that I had planned on and I rested for. My body feels fine. Like I don't feel, it's more just like the mental motivation. Right now I'm really getting back into the gym. And so I've been having fun in there, and I'm still running. I have some friends coming to visit next week, and I think after their departure, I'll start getting back into more focused training at that point to start preparing for 2023.
Excellent. Any last questions, Kim, from the live chat?
Yeah, there's a question early on when you were talking about the slower pace of staying in Europe, and Heather Reed had asked, does a slower pace in Europe remind you of life in West Virginia?
No.
I had to ask it from Heather.
Thank you, Heather. No. I've never put those two in the same.
But like, I can imagine, I mean, you set the stage and set the picture pretty good with like where you stay and the cows. Like the cows are your neighbors.
I love the cow content that you
post. Man, I love them. I love them. I honestly, I miss them so much. Like they just make my day all night long. They ding and I don't care. I don't care that they keep me up all night. Like I just love it. There's something so magical about it. I love them. I can't just.
We need to get you a cow, Maria.
I was like, Maria, we can bring the cows on to the live show. Let's bring them in as a guest and have the cowbell dinging in the background.
Open the door to deliver the cow content.
Bring them in. Well, it's always a joy to catch up, Maria. And the reason we love having you on the show is because it's not just about the experiences and about the adventure and the amazing things that you do, but it's also how you work through things to get to those points, because I think it's all very relatable to a lot of people, and you have a great way of speaking about things in a way that makes things make sense, and talking about anxiety, your relationship with anxiety, talking about grief, talking about being able to overcome these speed bumps as they happen and sort of refocus and get ready for these races. This was a wonderful show, and we're really appreciative of you and who you are and what you do. I do want to give you an opportunity. Of course, Maria is a registered dietitian. Maria, I hope you don't mind. We're calling her our resident registered dietitian because she's been so helpful.
And has your title changed or evolved?
I think given the content that I put out, no, my title has not changed, but what I do has drastically changed in that, and I've never been one to do meal plans or to do body manipulation of any kind, but less and less are people mistaking me as a sports dietitian. I'm not a sports dietitian. My sessions are run more like nutrition therapy. I mentioned briefly before my fascination with trauma. I work with a lot of people who have experienced developmental relational childhood trauma and the impact that plays on their ability to ingest and digest normatively. And so I work around the deeper stuff. And so it's more like nutrition therapy. And so I try to make that really explicit when I talk to people in a clarity call or a discovery call or any type of, situation such as this, because number one, sometimes that's not what people are looking for, or they don't know that that's what they're looking for, or people just aren't ready to go there because as you've experienced yourself, Ethan, it's hard. It's really hard, and it comes with a lot of feelings. And so So we talk about a lot of feelings, a lot of needs not getting met or getting met. And so there's a lot of discomfort in that. And we try to build safety around that before kind of diving in.
Awesome. And are you taking new clients, and what does that look like, and what kind of person could reach out?
So if anybody listening is interested, I mentioned the Clarity Call. You're welcome to sign up for that. It's under Discovery Call on my website. And I'm booked for, I want to say the next 2 months. There might be some spots in November, but I always say if you can find a spot on my calendar, it's yours. It just might be a ways out. So if this is something that interests you, if you find a spot on the calendar, then it's yours.
Wonderful. Our guest tonight has been the incredible Maria Dalzot. We love having her on the show. I feel like the conversations are always multifaceted and deep, and we absolutely love it. If you would like to watch these shows live with us and be interactive in our wonderful chat room full of GR crew members and community just like yourself, head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. There's the link below us. Check it out. All tiers get access to these shows live, plus our daily live show we call Daily Brew, plus further discussions with amazing people like Maria, and we're just so thankful to have friends and people like her in our community. We are going to wrap it up. We do like to recognize members of the community who go above and beyond. We call it our GR Crew Member of the Week. Kim has a GR Crew Member of the Week, and I'm pretty excited about this one.
Oh, you're excited about this one?
I am. I think this is a great one. Who's our GR Crew Member of the Week?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week went and crushed the Orcas 25K. It is the one and only, the Matt Kujar.
Matt Kujar! Congratulations, Matt, on being our GR Crew Member of the Week.
And Angela did something this weekend too.
Yeah,
but I mean,
partners in crime. But Matt is the real GR Crew Member of the Week this week. Matt, congratulations on crushing 25K on the Orcas Island course. Tough 25K.
Yeah.
But as Matt put it, easier than I thought. Is that what his quote is?
I think it was like easier than how Angela described how hard it was.
Perfect. Congratulations, Matt, on being our GR Crew Member of the Week. Again, a huge thank you to our guest, Maria Dalzot. Maria, I want to give you the chance. What's your website?
It's just my full name, mariadalzotrd.com. I'm super easy to get hold of. You just have to Google it and I'm there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in live or listening or watching the archive. All very, very good ways to enjoy this show. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Me neither. We'll see you guys next week for more Ginger Runner Live. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Ginger Runner.